Hello and welcome to OSBA's Legal Ledger Sidebar series. The Sidebars are video series that go along with our Legal Ledger that we publish every week, where we talk about legal issues that face board members. Today we're talking about rehiring retirees, and my name is John Price and I'm a staff attorney here in the legal division, and I'm joined by my colleague Jennifer Hardin. Hello, Jenny.
Hi, John. Glad to be here.
So rehiring retirees is a question that we get fairly often on the hotline, and we know that board members don't always agree on whether it's a good idea to rehire retirees. But the good news is that boards have discretion as to whether or not they want to do this based on the facts and circumstances of each case and their own communities.
Yeah, this can be a really controversial issue in some communities. There may be people in your district who aren't comfortable with the idea of the board rehiring a retiree to the same position. That's one of the reasons why the law requires transparency when the board's doing this.
So, to your point about transparency, I believe the law requires boards to take certain steps before rehiring retirees. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually there are two laws. There's one in each of the two laws that govern the retirement systems that cover most school district employees. So there's a law for the state teachers retirement system and a law for the school employees retirement system. They're virtually the same though.
So, as I understand it, the board has to give public notice that a person who is or who will be retired is seeking reemployment to the same position, and the board actually has to hold a public meeting on the issue.
It's true, and both of those actions have specific timing requirements. The notice has to be issued at least 60 days before the employment of the reemployed retiree is to begin, and they have to hold the public meeting between 15 and 30 days before the employment as a reemployed retiree is to begin.
So in addition to putting the public on notice of the fact that someone was retiring and seeking reemployment, the notice also has to include the time, date, and location of the public meeting, right?
Yeah, and that meeting can be part of a regular board meeting or a special meeting. Even if the meeting's part of a regular meeting, though, the meeting notice for this particular portion of the meeting has to include the purpose. That is, that you've got a retiree who wants to be rehired on the agenda, and it has the time, date, and location of the meeting, as you already said. So, John, what's the best way to figure the date for the notice and for the meeting to allow the public to comment on the decision?
So there is some disagreement about this, so we would encourage boards who are thinking about doing this to reach out to their legal counsel. OSBA has taken the position that the best way to figure out the dates is to count backward from the date from the meeting where the board will actually be voting on whether or not to rehire the person.
So, for example, let's say the board plans to consider whether to rehire someone who's retiring at its meeting on November 20th. They would have to have the public meeting between 15 and 30 days before that November 20th meeting, or between October 21st and November 5th.
And they would actually have to issue the notice 60 days prior to the November 20th meeting, which I believe would be September 21st in our example.
So let's say we have already rehired a retiree and it's a year later and we're deciding whether to keep that person as an employee. Do we have to go through that same process again?
Thankfully, no. I think our members will be pleased to hear that the notice and the hearing to the meeting, or the meeting about rehiring the person, only has to happen once. The board can then renew contracts with the employee in future years without providing the notice or holding the hearing.
So is there anything else the board should be thinking about when it's considering rehiring a retiree?
Absolutely. The board definitely needs to be thinking about its collective bargaining agreement, any CBAs that might impact whether the board can do this, and should also check the board policy to see if there are any additional policies and procedures in place there.
And if there are additional policies or procedures, or if the CBA does consider rehiring retirees.
Tongue twister.
Yeah, the board should check with their legal counsel about that. Make sure that they're complying with whichever of the provisions they need to comply with. So if anyone wants more information about rehiring retirees, we've added a link to OSBA's fact sheet on this topic to the legal ledger page for this sidebar.
All right, Jenny. Well, thanks for talking to me about this. We hope that this will be helpful to boards when they're thinking about doing this in the future, and we'll see you all at our next sidebar. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.